creatures of the night. You hear a creak in the floorboard and a scratching in the window pane. There's someone out there lurking in the darkness, or could it be your imagination getting the best of you? The fears and the nightmares you hold deep within you are bubbling up at the surface as you sit in your own silence deciding what to do next. But what if you lost the ability to speak, to cry out for help, to phone the police? And on top of this, you lose your sense of hearing, trapped in a world without sound. Left, only the voices in your head telling you you're not alone. Evil is all around us. We can feel it as it breathes down our neck. For some, silence is golden, but for some, it can be deadly. This is It Records. I'm Matt Johnson, as always, joined with my co-host and friend,
Peter Hansen. You show off with your elegant speech.
Yeah, I just I take some time and I sit down and I try to write up a good intro for the show. You know, really set the tone for what we're going to be talking about.
Whereas I just think of it on the spot.
And it just comes to me, just flows through me. But this week, everybody, for the podcast, we will be discussing the 2016 film, our most recent film that we're reviewing and talking about is the 2016 film Hush, directed by Michael Flanagan. For those of you who don't know, it was released on Netflix about, what was it, Pete? Last week? 2 weeks ago?
I want to say 2 weeks
2
ago.
2 weeks ago on Netflix.
2 weeks ago, prior of this recording, of course, because it's
true.
To throw people off, because recording date is going to be different than the date of release.
Sure, so the recording date of April 26th. Yeah.
Yes.
But yes, we'll be discussing that film today. Before we really get into it and give you a synopsis, Pete, this is the time that we arrange for you to give our listeners, I'll get it right, they're listeners, our creepy headline.
They're viewers in our hearts.
In our hearts, okay.
So today's a little different creepy headline because it's in my neck of the woods, as it's happened a block or two away from my house, I want to say.
Oh, shit.
Where an alleged couple, a man and a woman, have been breaking into neighborhood homes in my area. They've been kicking in the basement windows is how they've been trying to get into your homes, stealing your shit when you're not there under the darkness that clouds them.
Oh.
And I believe they're still at large. I don't know. But it's been reoccurring for quite some time.
Shit, Pete. That's real creepy. That's a real creepy headline. How are you holding up with all that?
I get a little freaked out when I fall asleep on the couch downstairs in my parents' house, where I hear a noise and I'm just like, oh man, what was that?
Yeah. You gotta be on high alert.
I always look to the fire poker that's nearby. And I was like, I'm using it as a weapon.
Yep. You got your weapon of choice in case anything goes down. You're prepared. You've seen your fair share of horror movies.
Too many.
You've seen your fair share of home invasion movies. Which brings us to Hush, which is a 2016 home.
That segue.
Yep, I'm a champion of segues. The 2016 film Hush is a home invasion film. Hopefully not similar to the experience that Pete and his neighborhood is going through at all. But for some of you who haven't heard of it, it's very recent. I'll give you a brief rundown of just the plot of the movie. A reclusive author. She went deaf as a teenager. She finds herself hunted by a deranged masked killer inside of her isolated home, sending her into a dangerous game of cat and mouse in order to survive the night. As well as being deaf, she is mute. She cannot speak. Well, that is the movie Hush that Pete and I watched this past week. Runs a total of about 82 minutes with credits, so it's a very quick film, about hour and 20 minutes, if that. And it kind of just flies through. It's a real-time film. Everything happens and as it unfolds in front of you, except for one some part in the third act, but we'll get to that later.
Tell us how you really feel. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, so, Pete, you turned me on to this film. I wasn't aware of it until you brought it up. What were your general feelings about it? How did you come to, I guess, know this movie had come out on Netflix, like, the day it came out?
So I was just scurrying the depths of Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even hear about it like via the internet. I like to browse a lot on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe many people do this too, or they just actually make a decision right away. I unfortunately do not have that.
Yeah.
Where I go probably an hour and a half of me picking of what I want to watch.
I have that problem too.
Mostly where I'm in the horror section, I'm just like, seen it. It's like, I don't feel like watching that right now.
Yeah, there might be a better one. I'll see what else there is. I might come back to it.
And this one, Hush, came up, and I was like, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
When I was like, I don't even remember hearing about this movie because, sometimes I fall behind on times with horror news. I'll admit that, but it did very well at South by Southwest. And
But it was released, right? It was the first premiere of it?
yeah, and like a week or two after that, it came to Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Like very, very soon after it aired there. So I was just like, and then I looked it up, and I was like, holy shit, this is a pretty good rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I'd say very.
And I know, yeah, well, it doesn't have that many reviews.
True.
But every reviewer has given it a positive review.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, let's check this bad boy out.
Mm-hmm. And what were you pleased with what you saw?
Are we jumping the gun a little bit here?
I guess I shouldn't say because we're going to defend or destroy at the end. That's right.
Or do you want to rearrange it a little differently since this film is a little more straightforward and it's kind of just like it could just be a little more in-depth review instead of going by segment breakups?
Yeah. Well, I guess just generally, since you're a horror, I'd say expert at this point. It's a home invasion film. That's.
Should we? Sorry to break you off, but maybe this would be a good point.
That's fine. I was just on an excellent
on a roll.
there.
I know. I apologize, but maybe before we start, it'd be a good time to, I guess, not show the trailer, but I guess play the audio clip from the trailer.
No, that's a good idea. They'll get a general idea of it. Sure. Roll the clip.
All right, well, there you have it. There's that trailer. Pretty standard trailer, I would say, and
about a quarter of the film.
it kind of shows the highlights, I guess. But I don't know. It's okay. It's okay trailer, but I think the movie itself is actually, I'm gonna say it. I liked it. I liked this movie.
Yeah, you enjoyed it. How do you think then it holds up to other home invasion films in the horror genre? We can go more recent home invasion, or just what you think are some of the better ones and how it holds up.
My go-to home invasion is the original Straw Dogs. Is the only one that really comes to my mind right now, and
Strangers.
I've never seen that one actually.
Oh, that's one that comes to mind for me. Okay,
And
go ahead.
Man, I'm really drawing a blank, honestly. Didn't do my homework.
Yeah.
Or, oh God, now I just feel terrible. But I think Straw Dogs overtakes it by a long shot. But I think this movie, Hush, did a very good job by trying to keep it fresh. And I guess Your Next is another home invasion movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which was,
That's
this
a fair
kind of
bit,
felt
yeah.
like Your Next a little bit. It had some Your Next moments with like the mask and
Definitely.
crossbow felt very,
Yeah.
even though there's been movies with it before, it just felt like it really borrowed from Your Next.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I agree. But it felt, I mean, maybe it was trying to touch on just some tropes or some things used in other horror films. Because I know from doing a little research on it, The Mask, the deranged killer we meet, he's wearing sort of a expressionless mask that's kind of got a slight smile to it. It's a white mask that's plastered to his face. The director meant for it to be sort of a tribute and try to get it to look as close to Michael Myers as he could, the original Halloween mask.
Oh,
But not completely take.
okay.
Hmm. So there could be definitely some pre-thought ideas of pulling in these certain things from previous movies that they enjoyed.
Interesting.
Hmm. And just that I mentioned the director, it's Mike Flanagan. He also did Oculus, which is on my list, which I know is a pretty famous recent one that people may have seen if you liked that movie.
I do enjoy that movie as well.
Hmm. And then this is a Blumhouse production, which they do. I mean, they did Oculus, right?
I believe so.
Most of the modern, I feel like, horror thrillers you see anymore are from
Like
Blumhouse.
The
for
Gift
reference.
is another Blumhouse.
Is Paranormal Activity?
I want to say it's not. I want to say that's like a bigger studio. But I could be completely wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I knew them all at one point, but
They've been doing
doing
a lot lately.
Sorry.
So it's kind of hard to keep track sometimes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. They've just been churning them out. No, they did do Paranormal. Got that
Okay.
right here. Paranormal, the remake of The Martyrs, Sinister. Yeah. So that's Blumhouse, just for reference. But so they didn't make it though. They didn't make this movie. It was an acquisition that they got from once they saw it at South by Southwest.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. But I think they chose wisely. I'm not going to say if that means they defend or destroy it, but
I think it's a film
I
that
think it was a
will do well on Netflix once more people find out about it.
I do too, and I think it's a good Netflix film, just because maybe if it's on a large audience scale, it's a quick movie. It might not be the movie theater type environment that people are looking for, or some things that might seem as like a weak third act, which I think it has, or some instances they might not suspend their disbelief and be like, oh, that's stupid, that's hokey. Might be more acceptable in let's check out this movie on Netflix. They might be more forgiving of it, I feel like.
So you're almost saying that Netflix is kind of like a subpar way of
Not
releasing movies.
No, definitely not. I mean, I just feel it. I think it still has a stigma to it where it's definitely picked up pace, especially in TV shows.
It's more of like a
TV
rental, like something to check out.
Exactly.
Like kind of like a like you're like, oh, I'm not gonna see it in theaters, but like I'll rent it at Blockbuster. But Blockbuster
I'll see when it's on
is
DVD.
dead, so we have Netflix.
Exactly. Yeah, it's got that feel to it. Now, TV shows, I think they're very. I mean, they're top notch now. A lot of them are superior to some things that are on TV, but movies I still think have that stigma. Oh, I'll see it when it's on Netflix. I'll see when it's on DVD. So people are more forgiving when they watch it there, which I still think it's a great film. Maybe we'll see.
Especially when they're they borrow their friends' passwords and don't even pay for Netflix.
Exactly. So it's like a free.
Yeah, like I didn't even have to pay this movie.
Mm-hmm. Now, getting into this movie, we've basically given you the premise, and it's hard not to if we talk about the film, to spoil it, just because it's so quick, and it's.
Yeah, I think we should just like say this is full disclosure spoiler. You want to do it that way, or you want to tiptoe around it?
I feel like we're going to hit spoilers, so we could just
full.
Once we get to them, we can just full disclosure, or we'll probably say some spoilers.
Let's say we're going to full disclosure, but we'll give like a spoiler warning right before we do it.
Yeah, sure. Sure, Pete. That sounds great. Okay, so with this movie, I'm not going to go plot point by plot point, but you get the basic idea. There's a home invasion, and he's sort of playing games with the woman who's deaf and mute. Basically says he's going to toy with her and kill her at the last moment when he deems necessary, or like almost when she begs for it. But one thing that I want to point out that I thought was really well done with this film, despite the sort of original idea for this movie, is the sound design. And the sound being its own, I guess, character in the film, if you will. Just from the opening sequence, they're doing that where it kind of is, it's cut, it's muted, especially when it's around her, which is definitely a brilliant way then to make the jump scare more effective when everything's kind of dead and silent, as if you want to use the jump scare.
Especially,
which they did know.
No, I was going to say, especially when you first meet the villain, I think, when it's like after you talk to the neighbor, she talks to the neighbor, and then you see the killer, and I was just like, oh, shit, because like you're introduced that she's deaf and mute, and then she's unable to help her neighbor.
Yeah.
So that's the spoiler part, obviously. So
true.
Spoilers.
Yeah. Spoilers. But yeah, I thought that was a really well done feature of the film throughout, really. And then the first act leading up to it, which is quick because it's, hour and 80 minutes. Hour and 80 minutes? Come on. It's 80 minutes, so it's an hour and 20 minutes. But it does grip you, and it's really intense when the killer takes off the mask and sort of gives his plan that there's no rhyme or reason to this. This is what I'm doing. And she slowly tries to develop ways to look deep within her.
I want to stop you there for a second, if I may.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that? Were you upset that he took off the mask, or did you enjoy it? Did you think that was... I feel like it raised the stakes, and I liked it. And I watched it with a friend, and she agreed. She was just like, yeah, I think that was for the better. But we were looking up reviews on it, like user reviews, and some people were saying that they like, oh, I really enjoyed the mask. I wanted to keep it on. And I was like, I didn't even like the mask. That I'm going to say that I didn't like the mask that much, and I was glad he took it off.
Yeah. No, I would have to agree with you. I'm glad he took it off. I think it was a nice touch to throw the mask on. It kind of gives him that demented sort of almost Michael Myers-esque sort of like killer that's lurking around. but it does raise the stakes because she says, she writes on the glass that I haven't seen your face, I won't say anything, please go away. And he takes it off and he goes, now you've seen my face. So you know who I am, you know what I'm doing. This isn't about I'm not running scared. This is, I know what I'm doing here, and I'm not leaving until I'm done. It does raise the stakes, and it makes him look, I think, even more villainous.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that he took it off. Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
do you remember what you were saying before that? Before I segued a little bit there.
Oh, I think I was just basically saying how I think it was. I mean, it gets in the action quick, but the second act was really well put together, where you sort of see her. So she can't say anything. You can't hear anything because they kept when it's her around, they try to keep it as like minimal sound as possible, and you can kind of see through her actions and her facial cues how she would react in that situation, and like if you would agree with it, and it's sort of that survival instinct coming out, and it never seemed over the top to me, like she or like over exaggerated, and it just flowed really well, and it was believable to that extent.
Well, I know there's one thing in the story that threw both of us off, and we weren't too fond of, and it's since she's a novelist, she told that she could really think out multiple endings in her head, and they do that. So what they do, another spoiler alert here. She's like going through the actions of like trying to escape outside, and then the killer gets her, but we are not aware of that. And I'm like, oh shit, where is this movie going right now? And I was pleasantly surprised by that. And then it was just like, oh JK, it's my multiple.
I'm dreamy.
I was just like, fuck you.
Yeah, that was my reaction to it as well. Like, I was with the film, like, the premise I was okay with. I was following the characters. I was believing it. I was into the movie, and then it surprised me in a good way when she was getting attacked by the killer, and I was like, oh my god, what the fuck is happening? It's a fucking like dream, multiple endings thing, and I was like, no, that the movie could have done without that, because it takes you away from just being trapped inside the house, because then it's flashbacks, and then you see her kind of going through a bunch of different ways that she could be killed, and what she needs to do to survive.
I think they could, if they wanted to. I know she mentioned it before, but like, I don't know, when they showed it, it was just like too much was given to us. Like, I feel like they could have just like said it like more subtly with like a little bit more dialogue, or even more of her actions. Like, they didn't have to show it, but maybe like her, like, I don't know, planning out something. I don't know how to explain it really, since I wasn't the screenwriter of this movie, but I'm trying to think what would make it.
Oh, which was the main actress, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But go ahead. Sorry, she was one of the co-writers.
So I was like trying to think. I was like, I think it would have been best to leave it out. But I was like, if they wanted to leave it in, they would have to rewrite the movie a different way. Like, I think if they wanted, so like my first scenario one, is that she does get killed, and that dream sequence, that's actual reality. But somewhere in between the movie, she actually contacts the boyfriend, and it's like more believable that he is coming back, and then he comes back to this huge, like, 3 people are dead in this area. Maybe that could have been at least a different approach about it. That could have been more interesting. It's like, I don't know, that seems like it'd be different, but I don't know if it would work. So I was just like, trying to amend this story in my head that I thought would be better. And I guess probably the best thing is probably just to omit it all together and find other ways of mentioning her multiple endings, so the third act would make more sense.
Yeah. I think just to make it, they almost just didn't need it. I mean, it would, because it takes you away from it, and like what she comes away with from like going through all those different possible endings, and what needs to happen is she says spoilers. This isn't really a spoiler, but she says, "I have to kill him." Like that's the only way she's gonna get out of this. I don't think they needed to show all those different possible endings and like take you away from it a bit, because there's definitely a way you could have shown her like coming to that realization. Like she doesn't have her phone, the power's cut, he's surrounding the house, she's losing blood, she can't run, she can't talk. Like I think the inevitable thing is the only way she's getting out of here. I mean, I was thinking she's got to kill him. Like,
yeah,
you don't need to go through all the endings. You gotta
like
kill him. Otherwise,
it was like one of the first, like when the stakes were risen within like the first 15 minutes. I'm like, you gotta kill him. And then when she finally says, "Oh, I have to kill him," I'm like, yeah, I said that like fucking 35 minutes ago.
yeah. So I think if they would have, we were on board for that idea, and that's when they used like all the different endings. Cut that from it. I'm on board that she has to kill him. I think it would have been a much tighter third act, and it would have kept that intensity the whole time. Going with that, Pete, you had a theory yesterday that you were talking about with me about this film, is that, what was it, that even the actual ending was a different ending than what might have happened?
I think what we saw, the final moments of the third act, was in fact like a multiple endings in her head, because it's the way it was like shot and the way that it kind of ended, like, I don't want to say catharsis, but like, I don't know, it just felt like it felt very odd. And she had like it felt like she had like a little smirk on her which made me raise some questions. And I was like, maybe this is just not like reality. This is just like in her head, and she actually is just like dying. Like she's
maybe
she passed out from the blood in the bathroom or something.
Exactly. I was thinking that, or she actually did die when we first see her get caught, but it went back to different endings. She actually did die there, and the one ending we saw was a different ending as well. But it was a happy ending, but it wasn't what really happened.
Yeah. So,
which I thought that was a very good point that you made.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say what it is. I feel like it's ambiguous. Like people could take it like, my friend, she took it the happy ending and was happy with that, and I was like, okay, that's a fun ending. But I almost much rather it be a multiple. If you're pushing for these multiple endings, to have it go that way, I think is is more interesting to me.
Me too. I think that makes it more complex, and I like that idea. Pete, I was then going to ask just an overall question. In this movie, what did you find to be the most intense moment that you were on the edge of your seat?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, because there's a lot of situations. I mean, it's someone's being hunted in their house. There had to be one of those situations where you were like, that one would have my nerves going crazy compared to a different one.
There's a lot of moments, but I think the one, since I'm a very visual person, I'm going to have to say right after like her neighbor's husband or boyfriend comes into the picture, and then he like realizes he's not like a cop, and then he gets killed, and then she shoots a crossbow at him, and I'm just like, oh shit. and then she drops an arrow, and of course has to go back for it, and he just breaks her fucking fingers. And as a visual person, I was just like, oh man, that's so gross. And it was just like, I was off the wall at that point. I was like, damn, this is crazy right now.
No, that for me too. That was like the collection of scenes for me that I was like, I was gripped because it was just boom, 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 and it was very visual. One hold up I have with that scene is spoilers. So if you're gonna see it, spoilers. When the husband comes over and he gets stabbed, but he's still alive, and he's got him, and they kill her in the chokehold, but he's like bleeding out. And she sees that, and she like doesn't do anything. She just like stares from the window. I was so mad. I was like, this is it. This is your moment. You could kill him. Just go get a knife. He's dead. The guy's got him down. But no, she just stayed inside.
Yeah. There's moments like that a lot in horror movies, and this movie had them too.
I know. It does. It does have them.
You almost sometimes it's hard to avoid because then you don't have a movie. You know what I mean?
I know. Because it would end in the first 15 minutes.
It's such like I feel like this one, it was a lot better about it because I wasn't. Of course, I was mad about that part, but I feel like I've watched plenty of other movies where I'm just like, oh my god, these characters are so stupid. Where she was just like, probably felt more cautious, and she's injured, so it's a little more believable. And she's like deaf and mute, so she's not to say that that's even more of a reason, but it kind of is.
Yeah. Which, with that being said, it reminded me of Wait Until Dark, which I'm sure some people have seen on the podcast if you're listening or not. But it's a similar type of horror thriller premise. But she's blind. She's not deaf and mute, but she's blind. And these killers are not really killers, but like there's some package that's in her apartment, and they're sneaking in and trying to avoid her detection. That's Audrey Hepburn, who she was nominated for an Oscar for that movie.
Yeah.
Everybody.
I saw there was a couple of film reviews that our researcher Lindsay sent to us, and and I saw that comparison, and I was like, I've never seen this movie, and I was very interested because I was like, if it's similar to this movie, I'm on board, and it's Audrey Hepburn, which was very surprising, and I think Terrence Young is the director, who's done a couple of James Bond movies, and his repertoire is kind of like very diverse. So I was very interested to check it out.
That's pretty good, and it's not as gory as this one. It's the 60s, and it's Audrey Hepburn, and also one of the villains is Alan Arkin, a very young Alan Arkin. You know that? So yeah, check it out definitely if you enjoy this one or the premise of it. Wait Until Dark is another good one. That's similar idea.
I love myself a good caper, even though it's not a caper.
Oh, Pete, you kill me. With that being said, Pete, I think we've talked it up. We've talked up Hush without giving away too many spoilers, but quite a bit of them.
I would say we spoiled pretty much like the highlights.
Yeah, we apologize.
The final thoughts, I would say, I defend this movie. What does yours say?
You defend it? I'll defend it. That seems hesitant because it wasn't enough for me to destroy it, but I had a lot of hiccups with it. Mainly the main gimmick of it is that she's mute and she's deaf, which kind of always ruffles my feathers. Of like, it just seems like you're trying to play on that as like the main hijinks of the movie instead of creating a full-on story behind it. So I was a little hesitant, but it was well put together. Act 1 and Act 2 were great. The sound design was better than I thought it would be. And it just had a small, weak third act. That one scene we talked about, the dream sequence. But other than that, I enjoyed Hush. So I will defend it. I think people should see it. And if your theory holds true, if the ending was actually another alternative ending she was spinning in her head, the third act might be a little more redeemable in my mind. Because I hadn't thought that the first viewing.
I could get behind that, how it would be better. But I guess we would never know. It's kind of like up to the viewer to kind of determine what they want.
Yeah. And I prefer your viewing. But yeah. So we both defend it. Everybody go out and rush to see Hush on your Netflix account. Check it out. It's been on there for a few weeks now. Maybe 100% Rotten Tomatoes still. But until next time, please check us out on our website. Again, we've been talking it up on these last few episodes. It Records Podcast on WordPress, where we'll have the latest episodes.
We got some blog posts on there for you to gander at.
You got blog posts on there now. I've got one up there. Pete's gonna have, I believe, 2 or so up there, a couple on there, and they'll be coming out as frequently as we can churn them out for you. And any forums and discussions about our episodes or about any of the stupid stuff we say on here, please feel free to talk about it on our website and Twitter and our Facebook. And we'll have mini episodes that will come out alongside. We'll try to every 2 weeks with our usual episode.
I'd say that wraps up everything in a nice little bow.
Oh, good. I got it all in. Perfect. Well, until next time, I remain in the shadows.
Do you? Do you really?
I remain there every week. I don't even leave my apartment. I just sit in the shadows and wait until our next movie.
All right, Matt.